Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. Ready to explore something new today?
Definitely. Always excited to dive into new topics.
Well, today let's look into the Savannah Hypothesis.
Okay, interesting.
Have you heard about it?
Yeah, I've come across it in my research. It suggests that humans have this sort of inborn preference for landscapes that resemble savannas.
You know those grassy plains with scattered trees? You see them a lot in those nature documentaries.
Exactly. Picture those wide open spaces dotted with acacia trees. It's a pretty iconic image.
So this hypothesis argues that our brains are kind of programmed to like these landscapes because of where our ancestors lived.
Right. The idea is that our ancestors evolved in African savannas, and that environment shaped a lot of their, adaptations.
Fascinating.
Huh.
So even though many of us live in cities now, our brains still find those landscapes appealing.
Yeah, and it's not just about the big picture landscape either.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this preference might go deeper and affect things like what kind of trees we like or our feelings about water even.
Even shiny objects, maybe?
Exactly. We'll get to that later, but it's all connected.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So let's break this down. Starting with the savanna itself, why were these landscapes so crucial for our ancestors?
Well, savannas offered a unique mix of resources and challenges.
In what way?
Well, they had food in the form of plants and animals and water sources, all essential for survival.
Of course. But I imagine there were dangers too.
Yeah, definitely. Predators, competition for resources, that kind of thing.
So our ancestors had to be adaptable to both thrive in and navigate the complexities of the savanna.
Absolutely. It was a balancing act. And one of the key savanna features that influenced their survival was the open landscape with those scattered trees.
Right, the acacia trees?
Exactly. This setup allowed for good visibility, so it was easier to spot predators and prey. And it also made it easier for them to move around and explore.
Makes sense. You wouldn't want to be stuck in dense jungle with a lion chasing you.
Yeah. Not at all. So speaking of spotting things, there's a study that kind of backs up this innate savanna preference. It involves a painting called America's Most Wanted.
America's Most Wanted. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, it's a classic savanna scene, open grassland, a few scattered trees, a body of water, mountains in the distance. Researchers showed this painting to people from all over the world.
Different cultures, different backgrounds.
Exactly, and they asked them to describe their ideal landscape. Well, the results were amazing. Most people, no matter where they were from, said that scene was their ideal landscape.
Wow, that's pretty powerful evidence. It seems like we have this collective image of a perfect landscape in our minds.
It really does, and it looks a lot like a savanna.
That's fascinating. So it's not just in paintings, right? What about things like parks and gardens? Do they often have features that kind of mimic a savanna?
You're exactly right. Think about it. Open lawns, groups of trees, winding paths.
So you're suggesting those design choices aren't just random. They could be tapping into our deep-seated preference for these savanna-like spaces.
That's one interpretation. And this ties in with something called the prospector-fuge theory.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that one.
Well, it suggests that we're naturally drawn to environments that offer both open views, the prospect for seeing opportunities and dangers, and sheltered areas, the refuge for safety and protection.
Like feeling safe and comfortable in a well-designed park. It's more than just being pretty. Maybe it's our inner caveman feeling at ease.
That's a great way to put it. And get this preference for savanna-like things might go beyond just landscapes. It could even affect the types of trees we find appealing.
Now that is intriguing. And tell me more about this connection between trees and our savanna past.
Well, think about the typical savanna trees. They usually have wide canopies and trunks that branch out low to the ground, like acacias. To our ancestors, these shapes would have signaled a safe and resource-rich area.
Ah, so those acacia trees with their umbrella-like tops are the perfect example.
Exactly. They give shade from the sun, their leaves are food for animals, and their branches offer a hiding place from predators.
Amazing how something as basic as a tree's shape can trigger these deep-seated preferences in us.
It really is. And it goes even further than that. Studies show that people tend to prefer trees with small, compound leaves.
Which are also common on savanna trees, right?
Right. It's thought those small leaves might have signaled to our ancestors that the tree was healthy and had nutritious foliage.
So even the tiny details of a tree's leaves can hold clues to our evolutionary history.
It seems that way. And what's really interesting is that early exposure to these kinds of trees can make those preferences even stronger. It's like our brains are primed from childhood to find certain tree shapes more aesthetically pleasing.
So the next time I'm admiring a beautiful tree, I'll have to consider its shape and leaves. I could be subconsciously reacting to cues from my evolutionary past. But let's shift gears a bit. We talked about open landscapes and trees, but what about cliffs? Why do we feel this urge to climb them, even though it can be risky?
Well, remember, for our ancestors, caves and cliffs provided vital shelter. They were safe havens and gave a great vantage point to survey their surroundings. It's possible that instinct to seek out high, protected places is still with us today.
It's that primal urge to conquer the summit.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just about the height, right? It's also the view from up there, that feeling of taking in the whole landscape.
Exactly. And what's a key element of many landscapes, especially savannas? Water.
Ah, water. The essential ingredient for any ecosystem. But water can also be a source of danger, can it?
That's the thing about water. It's both vital and unpredictable. Essential for survival, but potentially dangerous, especially for our early ancestors.
So they had to be aware of both its benefits and its risks.
Exactly. And yet we're still drawn to it, aren't we?
We are. It's like we have this deep-seated understanding of water's importance for life, even if we know, logically, that not all water is safe.
Research shows that people consistently rate scenes with water as more appealing, even if it's not crystal clear.
Okay, this is all really fascinating. But before we get into how water connects to our love for shiny objects, let's take a break.
Sounds good.
When we come back, we'll explore that connection and go deeper into the evidence for the Savannah Hypothesis.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the Savannah Hypothesis. Before the break, we were talking about how our ancestors' need for water, shelter, and that good view might explain why we're drawn to water and cliffs.
Right, and how those instincts might still be with us today, even though we don't need them for survival in the same way anymore.
Exactly. We also talked about how the savanna might have influenced our preferences, from landscapes to trees.
It's amazing how all these seemingly random things could be linked to our evolutionary past.
It really is. And there's even more evidence to support the Savannah hypothesis. One area researchers have looked at is landscape paintings and photographs.
You mean like those studies where people consistently chose savanna-like scenes as their ideal landscapes?
Exactly. Those studies show something pretty interesting about our preferences.
Right, like the America's Most Wanted painting study. It seemed like people from all different cultures were drawn to those open spaces, scattered trees, and the presence of water.
Exactly. And these preferences aren't just limited to art. They pop up in the design of parks and gardens, too.
So you're saying that when landscape architects design parks with open lawns, clusters of trees, and winding paths, they're tapping into our deep-seated desire for savanna-like environments.
That's the idea. And it's not just about aesthetics either. These design choices can actually have a real impact on our well-being.
Oh, I could definitely see that. Think about how you feel after a walk in the park. Relaxed, recharged.
Exactly. There's actually a reason for that.
So it's more than just a nice way to spend an afternoon. It's actually good for us on a deeper level.
It seems so. Researchers have been studying the effects of natural environments on our well-being for a while now.
And what have they found?
Well, their research has shown that being in nature, especially environments with open spaces, scattered trees, and water features, can actually lower your stress hormones, improve your mood, and even boost your cognitive function.
So a walk in the park isn't just a pleasant way to spend an afternoon. It could be nourishing our brains and bodies on a deeper level.
Exactly. Almost like our brains and bodies are designed to thrive in those environments.
Amazing. Speaking of thriving, let's get back to trees.
Okay, yeah. Let's go a bit deeper into the shapes of trees. We talked about how the shape of a tree can reflect the environment it grows in.
Right, like how acacia trees are wider than they are tall because they need to maximize sunlight exposure in a competitive savanna environment.
Exactly. Trees growing in resource-rich environments like savannas tend to have certain characteristics. They're often wider than they are tall, with spreading canopies and low-branching trunks.
And we also talked about how people tend to prefer trees with small, compound leaves, another common feature of savanna trees.
Right. Now, there's a lot of debate among researchers about whether this preference is learned or innate. Is it something we're born with or something we pick up from our surroundings?
It's a fascinating question. What's leading researchers to think it might be innate?
Well, these preferences seem to be cross-cultural, and they're even present in young children who haven't had much experience with different types of trees.
So our preference for certain trees might be hardwired into our brains rather than something we learn. That's mind-blowing. It really speaks to the power of our evolutionary heritage.
It really does. Okay, let's shift gears again, back to our discussion about cliffs. Remember that primal instinct we talked about? The urge to seek out higher ground?
Oh, yes. That feeling of wanting to climb a hill or a cliff just to see what's up there.
Right. Well, that instinct might be connected to our ancestors' reliance on caves for shelter. Caves were essential for their survival, providing protection from predators, weather, and even other humans.
So when we feel that urge to scale a cliff, we're tapping into that ancient desire for security, like a deep-seated memory from when cliffs and caves meant safety.
Exactly, and that view from above would have been vital for their survival, too. Being able to spot danger or resources from up high gave them a huge advantage.
It's incredible how the Savannah Hypothesis is making me rethink all my own preferences and behaviors. It's giving me a whole new way of seeing the world around me. What else can we learn from this theory?
Well, now we can get to one of the most surprising aspects of the Savannah Hypothesis, the connection between our ancient need for water and our modern love for shiny things. Ready to explore that?
Absolutely. I'm all ears. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've been uncovering some amazing insights about the Savannah Hypothesis and how our evolutionary past might be shaping our present. From landscapes and trees to even those cliff-climbing urges, it's all connected. Now, about that surprising link between water and shiny objects. I'm all ears.
It might seem like a strange connection at first, but consider this. Water was absolutely essential for survival on the savannah.
Right. No water, no life.
And one of the most visually striking things about water is its reflectivity.
The way it shimmers and sparkles in the sun.
Exactly. Our ancestors couldn't have missed that, even from far away.
So are you saying our ancestors may have been drawn to shiny things because it signaled water, like our brains are still making that connection subconsciously?
Exactly. That flash of light bouncing off a surface might have been a powerful cue, leading them to a vital resource. And it wasn't just about seeing those shiny surfaces either. They took it a step further.
Oh, right. They started polishing those bone tools.
Right. They were actively enhancing the shine, maybe even trying to copy the way water reflects light. It's fascinating to think about why they did that.
So that ancient act of polishing bone could be a link in the chain leading to our modern-day fascination with shiny things. I mean, we love anything that sparkles, from jewelry to shiny metals like gold and silver. It's everywhere.
It really is. Think about it. The smooth, polished surfaces of our gadgets, the glimmering decorations in our homes, even a freshly washed car with that shine. It's like this deep-seated love for anything that gleams.
Makes you wonder if all those old myths and stories about magical fountains and glittering pools of water have some basis in this, like maybe they weren't just made-up stories.
Now, that's a fascinating thought. It really shows how deeply our evolutionary history might be woven into our modern preferences. This Savannah Hypothesis gives us a whole new perspective on ourselves and our place in nature.
This entire deep dive has been eye-opening. I feel like I'm seeing the world in a new light. Recognizing hints of our savannah past in everything from the parks I visit to the objects I find myself drawn to. So what's the key takeaway you hope listeners will get from learning about the Savannah Hypothesis?
I think the most important thing is realizing that our evolutionary past is much more present in our lives than we often think. Our preferences, our behaviors, even our sense of beauty, all of these might be influenced by things that helped our ancestors survive on the African savannah. It's a humbling and empowering idea.
It's like we carry a little piece of the savannah inside us, shaping how we see and interact with the world. It really makes you appreciate the power of nature and how far we've come on this shared evolutionary journey.
Absolutely. Recognizing this connection can help us appreciate the natural world even more and understand why certain landscapes, shapes, and features are so appealing to us. It reminds us that we are part of something much bigger, a huge, interconnected web of life.
That's a beautiful thought to end on. Thanks so much for sharing your expertise with us today. And to all our listeners, we hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and inspired you to see the world with fresh eyes. Until next time, keep exploring and keep those minds engaged.